Welcome to Musings, Rants, and Guitars, February 28th, 2021. And welcome our very special guest, Bruce Kulick. Thank you,
How's
Bruce,
it going,
for
guys?
coming in.
Yeah, see you.
Yeah. Such an honor for us to have you on.
Wow.
Thank you very much for coming and
thanks.
being here for us.
I love the title of your interview thing, whatever.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. We've had a couple of rants, so it usually works out pretty well.
Well, I'll keep the rants. Like here in Las Vegas, the local news channel, Fox 5, it's called.
Yeah.
We like a lot of the newscasters, even though some of the news I'm like, oh my God, what are we watching? But they do have like a rant thing, and Lisa and I are always like the rant, and it's going to be a mixture of people like going off on a phone line, it's pretty funny. So,
Yeah.
but look, in the music business, there's plenty to rant about and there's plenty to rave about. So we'll keep it more towards the raving. Okay.
Good idea. Great.
If somebody, a guy came by your house to work on it and he, messed everything up, you can rant about that. It doesn't have to.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll do whatever you feel like talking about. But again, thank you for being on. You guys, what you've done, even locally here in New York, other than the other band, has always been impressive to us. So thank you.
Well, I do have a lot of history with New York, even though I left it behind in probably 85, late 85. But yeah, I'm still always a New Yorker. You can't take that out of me.
No, I can't even imagine how you like it in Vegas.
California was my home for many, many years, and it got more and more congested and more difficult. And the airport was always a challenge, even though, California has some incredible weather and everything, in the ocean's not that far. But it just got to a point where I just wasn't happy there anymore. And once, I was always there close to my mom, and she lived a blessed 93 years. And once she passed away,
God bless
Lisa and I said, like, we got to get out of here. We're not happy here. We need more space. Everything's too expensive. And we wound up, Todd Kearns and my dear friend Brent Fitz from Union, he'd been living out here in Vegas for a while, and he loved it. My brother was here too, actually, and I realized what I could, make the move and still be close enough to LA and have a great airport. So I know a lot of people have been coming here too. The weathers are extreme too, but it still has a lot of redeeming, things about it that I love. So I'm very happy here.
Yeah, you get the mystery snow, right? Sometimes.
Yeah. We had a little dusting this past winter. 2 years ago, it was even worse. There was quite a bit of weird. It gets very cold in the desert. A lot of people don't think that.
Don't realize it. Yeah.
It gets incredibly warm, but you'd be very surprised at how many mornings can be in the 20s, upper 20s, lower 30s, and people come here thinking, woohoo, shorts and sandals.
Right.
Year round. It's not true.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. So, tell us, what have you been doing during the pandemic? Like, we've been talking to a lot of different musicians, and we're all trying to find a way of to stay busy and not tour. So tell us what you're doing.
It's turned into the opposite with me in a very weird way, that I have too much to do now, mostly because, look, I'm never been a lazy guy. I've never been I'll do it tomorrow guy. There's times when there's deadlines and things creep up on you and you get a little panicky. But the point is, my typical year, and let's just look at, I don't want to go back 30 years, but if I go back to the last 20 years, I'm playing guitar with Grand Funk Railroad, and we're a fly to the next city just about every weekend of the year, doing about 40 to 50 gigs in a year. And that would take, even a single gig would take basically 3 days. Okay. So you can see already, of most of the weeks of my year, I'm gone for like 4 days. Okay. Even if I come home at like 1 PM because I took the earliest flight out from the Midwest, I'm toast. The rest of the day, I'm lucky to unpack, take a nap, and then have dinner with my wife and, just try to relax. Okay. So the majority of my, income was Grand Funk. And then the other 25% was me doing a lot of the other things that I do love from my just being a journeyman guitarist, being the former Kiss guitarist, so doing things related to my Kiss years or fame. And then, of course, whatever I could do as a guitar player, maybe a session, working with other players. Of course, there's always an occasional performance that I can do outside of that. I was on the cruise the last 3 years. Obviously last year was postponed. So there, and then times I would go to Europe and other countries to perform, but it would only be like 2 or 3 weeks. You know what I mean? I could never do that year round. Right. But traveling, I got 1 million miles on more than 2 airlines, and the amount of time away from home. I know every year when you do your taxes, you got to count up like how many days were you gone? Because, there's a write-off for travel. And I can't even imagine any year in the last 20 being less than like 120. So it's like right away, a third of the year, you're not even home. Okay. And that it just made me in the pandemic realize, oh my God, first of all, there was denial. Like, what is going on here? It shocked everybody when it happened, even though I kind of thought it was going to happen because I had a good friend in China, a musician friend of mine, who was warning me about what was coming, because they were already in lockdown and the whole thing. I'm asking him, can I, what do I do with the groceries? That's before it even happened. You know what I mean? And he's already telling me things, but just about in the beginning, they didn't know like what you can touch even, no less who you can go see. So I went through that phase for a week or two of in shock. And then I turned it around and I started to realize this is crazy. I gotta embrace my fans, certainly. And I was always active on social media. I ramped that up to a really big extent. I started, performing with my wife. They were the at-home, videos of songs from Unplugged. And then all of a sudden I was doing isolated riffs, okay? Because I knew that the people were eating it up. Now everyone's stuck at home. Right. Nobody can go to a job, basically, or like it looked like 85% of the population didn't. Yeah. And they're all watching. I'm getting the biggest amount of response and numbers and likes and comments that I ever got, right? And they're asking for more. And I'm loving the kind of interaction of staying busy, being creative, giving them things, And then as I saw that this pandemic would continue, I started asking more and more, like, how can I light it better? How can I film it better? How can I present it better? Because in the beginning, it didn't matter if you were in your sweatpants in your office with the phone any old way with lighting or not, as long as they see me playing and they hear it, they're happy. Okay. So I reached out to people that I respected their knowledge of audio and visual and how to present photos and things like that. I bought the newest iPhone at the time. I almost thought to jump ahead to even a fancier one, and I realized I think I'd be happy with the 11. I know now they have the 12 out, but this is the 11 I'm talking on. It's working really well. It's working. And and I all of a sudden, now I'm doing a session with Chris Jericho, something I never thought I would do.
Wow.
For that band Quarantine. And I never recorded in my house professionally. I would, practice for things and get ready. On the road on occasion, I used my iPad with GarageBand to fool around with tracks. Sometimes they were good enough to export to a friend, but now I'm on GarageBand, which I'm going to move up to Logic soon, which is the next step. But I'm, miking a real amp, in my laundry room with a good microphone. Then a dear friend of mine, an engineer, Brian Virtue, who did a lot of work with me, recommends me to Blue Microphones, who not only makes podcast mics, they make professional mics too. And then they hooked me up with a couple of great new mics. So all of a sudden now can professionally give a quality sounding performance from my home. I'm not saying I'm doing full-blown productions and mixing and that I went full tilt with a studio in the house, but when it comes to just what I needed to do for backing tracks to make the performances with my wife better, and all those tools that I learned, there was a big learning curve. There was a lot of yelling at the computer, a lot of cursing at the program, and that's my rant of the day, and then I realized, wait a minute, I got it. I want to learn iMovie better because I was telling stories about things. And I realized, well, wait a minute, I can now, it doesn't have to be one take. I could do a voiceover. I could, put photos in between. I could grab a little snippet of a video from something and share that and talk with it, and then all of a sudden my wife knew a little bit about iMovie and she started me off. And then I said, you know what, this is a lot like GarageBand. I got it. I can do this. I'm going to jump in, and, what I didn't know, I kind of Googled or I asked, and in time, through a lot of, trial and error and frustrations, because you want to have that video to share on that Sunday. And then that morning you're double checking it and you're hearing glitches and weird things that you don't know what you did wrong, until you realize later on, after asking people and everything, no, don't import the video like that. Don't keep it too short. You got to make sure your transitions are right. You get what I'm saying? So what a learning curve. Never a dull moment. Okay.
Absolutely.
And then I get more and more reaction from some fans who were in a position who were really kind to me. There was this guy, Jim, who reached out to me, who happens to be a professional SEO manager. He doesn't work with rock groups or bands or musicians, but he's all about branding. You got a shoe company, you hire him, you're going to get seen on Google. Yeah. And we all know that that's real important.
Yep.
Now him and one of his team guys, I swear to you when I say my brain was exploding with the amount of information they gave me. And as like kind of someone working for themselves with just some help with merchandise from someone, all of a sudden now I'm building the brand. And I think you guys should understand that. There's a big learning curve with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All the social media networks, or whatever you want to call it, platforms really is what they're called. They all have different rules and different, ways to do what you're supposed to do on them. And then there's always a new one that comes along,
Right.
Don't ask me about TikTok. I'm not touching it. Okay. So, but anyway, Jim and his ninja people really were helpful, blew my mind. And they kept reminding me, your YouTube channel, this should be much higher. Come on, we got to improve this, get the best content you can. Don't put the camera below you. Now I'm like a critic every time I see anyone's video,
Yeah, right.
And we do the same.
Yeah. So right. But everyone learned, because look at your networks are now reaching out to people who are stuck in their basement for expert advice. And they're sometimes really famous people. How are they lit? How are they going to share what's important? Because we do want to hear what he has to say. So not unlike the way SiriusXM sent Howard Stern everything he needs to do his show from his home, okay, where you don't know it's any different, okay, you know what I mean? And he's not going to the building in New York. So I had to learn that. I asked questions. Everybody out there should know that it doesn't come with a manual, I used to say that about watching my parents get older and managing their health care and their comfort, how they don't come with a manual, but you got to ask the people who do know, who care for, in this case, for me, it's how to present yourself on social media. How do you better film yourself, record yourself? How can you share it? What techniques can you do to improve it? So I've come a long way. Now you add that with the fact that I have a lot of content to do. I have more fans following me to converse with. I have more requests for sessions. I have more interviews. Okay. And I can't find enough hours in the day. Right. My wife helps me. I do things with her too, because she suddenly took this opportunity to find herself with art and then sing with me. And then, it was real interesting. I didn't want to skip over the fact that, I haven't flown to any gigs, but I did do two very important gigs to me in December. One was a Kiss Expo that got canceled, of course, or postponed till this year. but the guy still wanted to do a very limited event. I wasn't going to fly to Florida, but he did request me to do a streaming concert. So Todd Kearns, the great singer, bassist, guitarist, and everything, works with Slash and me and a lot of other people.
Yeah,
he came to my house. We rehearsed carefully. We wore our masks and everything. Obviously, when we performed, they weren't on. Lisa joined us. We did an hour performance from my living room that was streamed, and it came off without a hitch. Well done with my iPhone, thankfully, and my lighting techniques and the proper little amps to do this. And then the other gig was actually a corporate gig, a guy that would have absolutely, if we weren't in a pandemic, hired Lisa and I, or Todd and I and Lisa, to go do a gig for his company in Nashville. Yeah. And Lisa and I did that a couple of years ago. But when I told him, I said, look, I can give you a performance, but I actually know someone that might be able to bring it up a level that it would look almost like an MTV Unplugged. This is what the guy does. He wants to do something with me. And that's what he got. I was blown away by it. And they were so happy. Now, that was very limited. That was just for his, maybe 50 people.
Sure.
But still, it was a real gig. And in that case, I actually did go to it was part of a famous club in the Cosmopolitan, a room called the Library, that's at the Marquee Club. And the people at the Cosmopolitan and the Marquee people were wonderful to Todd and I and Lisa. We were treated like rock stars. And of course, we were all as careful as we could be with the masks until I had to perform. And, I had a 5-man crew doting on me and filming me and recording me. And then the guy who lives nearby, who this is what he does for a living, edited together fantastically. I learned from that. So you see, I've taken that probably never would have came up without the pandemic. I would have flown somewhere and performed at the, party that he had, you know what I mean? So again, more and more interesting, different things keep coming up. And then everything I've needed to learn to be able to stay creative, stay competitive, be bonding with the fans. So it's been, and lastly, the other thing, which has been a whole nother part of my world, is a lot of people always knew that, they liked when I put out, something, like a mini guitar or something, or a new pick set, or celebrated a new photo that I found that I could offer them to sign. But having the time now at home, I'm realizing, now I can spend a little more time with that. Okay. And there's some really terrific Facebook pages, one called Kiss Live Auctions, where Lisa and I have been archiving my Kiss stuff now for a long time, but never really with the time to really study it. So we've done a couple of auctions. I turn it into a party. So you don't have to be somebody bidding on one of my items. A portion of certain things go to charity, especially if it's anything to do with the Eric Carr era, because of his charity. Sure. And I did a Halloween auction and a New Year's Eve auction and a Valentine's Day auction. And those are exhausting because Lisa and I make it a party. We get the hats, the outfits, we do split screen on Facebook, and we entertain everyone. The last one, I had a guitar that I played throughout the video in between showing off the posters and the Poster-palooza. And it was a lot of fun. I mean, I realized that, half of the couple of hundred people that jump on there, sometimes is way more than that at a certain time, are not even, they're not interested in spending a couple $100 or even $1,000 or anything, but they're entertained, you know what I mean? So it's another way that I'm like kind of embracing the fans, and at the same time going down kind of my history with them. It's something I'm very proud of. So like I said, the pandemic, I am not going to go on record saying that I welcomed it or like it. Okay, I don't. I hate not being able to do those other things and be social in the way that I like to be. I don't miss the not traveling. I never loved traveling, but I do miss performing in front of people and all of that. I miss getting together with friends for dinners and things, because I still take it where I'm not really ready for that or any of that. In time, of course, it will come back. But in the sense of a growth thing, and as to what I can do to learn and improve everything creatively that I am about, it's been probably my biggest year of learning curve, if you know what I mean, of learning new things and mastering them.
That's fantastic. Just being more positive and like reinventing your time into doing these other things that you probably wouldn't be able to do because of touring and things like that.
Look, it's survival. You know, we all realize, oh my God, they're shutting off the cable tomorrow. You know, I mean, sometimes you're lucky you get a warning.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, what can I take care of that I don't have to be on the internet about? Oh, well, great. I always wanted to organize that closet. You know, you don't have to be online for that, right? And that will, you know, the universe will thank you, because that next time you're looking for that CD or record or whatever it was, the clothing, whatever you had to do. And there are a lot of things that you just need to know how to, you know, just make a right turn. And I do feel that there's always that opportunity to make a bad situation, you know, something with a silver lining, if you can get out of the damn it, and, you know, this sucks and I can't stand it anymore, you know. And I am aware, I can't believe how many of my friends will complain to me, or they'll ask me, so Vegas entertainment's open, I can come out, right? I'm like, it's really limited. I'm not going to promise, like what there is to do, but they're really hungry for live entertainment, and I would hope, you know, then enjoy more things online, or you know, get closer with other people. There's just always something else you can do, you know.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I gotta say, you did a wonderful job. I mean, your lighting there is great.
Thank you.
You have that splash of color of red behind you, and I noticed
Yeah,
that.
we like that.
I was watching some of your this
The video
off the guitar, and I was like, wow, that looks really good, man.
Mm-hmm.
I got to take some tips from you. I guess
I did want to tell everybody that was not. I didn't actually get that red curtain for COVID or to film myself or anything. Vegas, the home has a lot of windows, okay, and that's very popular in Vegas. Why? When it becomes so hot and so cold,
Right,
in the
everything
winter,
will catch fire.
but as soon as Lisa and I, you know, and she's so terrific with making a home amongst everything about being a wife of a rocker guy, but we made this room is like our TV room, and because it also faces west, okay, you know, you're gonna have light on all sides, right?
Yeah.
So she always wanted the kind of more blackout curtains, and if you ever go to like you know, some of the studios will have these like screening rooms, they're called, or you know, people's homes with screening rooms. You don't want a light to come in, you know. Nice. So the red curtain really came from that, and there's a few others upstairs, and later I have to film something for a video that's coming out next week. That's pretty cool, and I decided, we could use the other red curtain. There's a little more room, and it's to the floor. You know what I mean? So you make do with what you have, and then I'll give a tip to everybody, because there's been times I've done something with someone online, and I go like, oh my God, I love that background. Where'd you get it? Oh, it's just a projection from a green screen, you know. all that's available, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Ricky Rocket, one time I did the interview, and he just like brings in this thing, and it looks like, you know, like a brick wall, you know, kind of thing. That's so cool. He's in the cavern, you know. Yeah. So there's always a way around it. And I always laugh at all the things that come up in my Amazon feed when I'm scrolling certain things, because they know what I look for, you know.
Yeah.
They know what you're thinking.
Yeah, they do.
Unfortunately, mine
it's
do
a little
too.
scary, but I'm thinking all good things, so I don't care really. I really just keep it positive, you know.
Yeah. Very cool. So you were starting to talk about you doing recording there. So tell us a little bit about your gear chain for if you're doing a recording there.
Yeah, you know, what's interesting is that obviously I don't want to play through a half stack in my house, even though it's not really going to freak out a lot of people, because it's not like there's tons of people on top of me and everything. But I still don't like the idea of, you know, cranking an amp really loud, because if it was them, I wouldn't like it. You know what I mean? And I was hearing their stuff. Yeah. So I used to record many times with either a 212 cabinet or a 112. And I always owned this, I got it used, but it's a pretty boutique brand. VHT was the brand name. Okay?
Yeah.
And they make a really good solid 112. It was loaded with a 16 ohm Celestion, you know, 30. All right, you know, it's kind of like a vintage 30, whatever. Yeah. And that's my sound. I always like that, prefer that. So I'm able to mic that. I cover I still sometimes put a box nearby over the mic, or I cover it with a blanket too, just to not get some of the laundry room, slapping.
Yeah.
Which with the dynamic mics I use is not too bad anyway. But and then I got hip to a condenser mic, so I mostly was using my vintage Shure 57 that I bought with Bob Ezrin years ago from Amigo Studios when they were going out of business.
Okay.
Ironically enough, and that's a great mic.
Great mic.
They're always great for lead guitar and everything. But it was actually this guy Brian Virtue, that engineer guy who turned me on to Blue, who told me, try the baby bottle. I'm going to try to get the company to hook you up with that. And I can hear the difference with it. It's not radical, but it is a difference, and I was really kind of another learning curve with the condenser mic, because now I'm like, phantom power, okay, and now I'm like, which way where do I put it? It's so easy when you have that kind of dynamic pencil mic. Okay, I had a mark on the speaker cabinet anyway. Just point it at that and go, right? So I also bought a really good, my friend in China, the musician I mentioned, he records a lot with the Audio-Technica 4040, I think was the model that he recommended. Yeah. And I remember I had to do something for an artist acoustically. It turned out that I went DI with an Ovation, which really was the right choice. But at first I was like, all right, my first time, acoustic guitar, what do I do? You know what I mean? So I start setting up that microphone. I didn't even understand that, let's say this is your condenser mic. You don't do that. You know what I mean? You do this,
Right.
and what do I know, right? I'm like, this sounds terrible. I don't know what I'm doing. Of course I didn't know what I was doing, right? So back to Google, and I'm watching YouTubes, and now I'm asking. Then I realized, let's say you're supposed to put it with arrowhead towards the source, right?
Yeah.
Instead, I'm doing it this way.
I'm getting
and he's telling me
the strange phase sound. Why is it working?
Exactly. I'm like, this doesn't sound right. And then by the time I finally put it all together, had him tell me which way the switches should go. Switches? Tell me about a switch on a Shure 57. There is no switch.
Give me my 57 back.
Exactly. But I'm trying to learn. You got to be patient. Never do that on the sessions that you're under a timeline, okay? Because, you don't want to do that. So anyway, once I got that AKG working, the Audio-Technica rather, I was like, oh my God, this thing sounds amazing. Then I learned even how to use it for voiceover, right? With GarageBand into iMovie, or even an interview. I don't know if you knew that. I did one interview in England. The guy said, like, listen, we don't want you to just talk into your computer. We know you have GarageBand. He knew I was talking about it one time. You can actually, go into GarageBand and we'll pick it up. I go, you tell me how to do it, I'll be happy to do it. Right. It sounded unbelievable. I recorded the entire hour, we chatted, and then I, Dropboxed him the file. And and there it goes. And I sound like studio professional. So all these things that I've learned, and getting back to the recording the guitar, let's talk about the amps. So I've always loved, some of the little boutique, smaller amps, and I have quite a few, but I was always really impressed with the Egnater Rebel 20 because I thought it was a good sound, 20 watts, so you're not going to blow your brains out. Yeah. And then it's got that tube mix thing. I used to meet Bruce Egnater at the NAMM shows, and he knew I was a fan. Whatever. I know it's not a Bogner. I know it's not a completely boutique. They're probably made in overseas or whatever, but they just sound great. So my go-to 3 amps in the house, even though I have others, but I don't know yet if I want to bother with them because I'm getting such good results, so we have the Egnater. Mm-hmm. Then I have a Tiny Terror for the Vox when I want to go a little more Class A, so I don't have to think about lugging in one of my, I do have a car amp, which is Class A, but that thing's loud and clean. And then I do have a terrific Top Hat amp, but again, 212s, it's going to be pretty damn loud, but that amp is amazing. I also own a Top Hat 212 cabinet that I might pull out to Mike sometime with one of the other heads because I do love that stuff. And then the third head, if I have to really go Marshall, And I remember when I bought it, I didn't know when I'd get a chance to use it. And then everything started to switch to people not being able to afford me going into the studio. So they'd ask me to do it at home. How did I do it at home before? I'd have a friend come over with a laptop who really knew he had the best programs possible built in. So then I was going into the box and everybody loved it, because again, I don't do any of that now at home. I won't use any of the sounds. I know there's some great software that I could even get to work with GarageBand, but I have the luxury, because I'm in a home, that I could record a real speaker with a real mic. So I'm doing it that way. But the other head is a Marshall Jubilee. I bought one of the vintage ones before they were reissuing it. Mm-hmm. And that's the 2550 watt one. So you know what I'm going to tell you? I put it at 25 watts. I remember I told Bonamassa that I got it. And he said, I like the big head 100 watt ones. I said, I get it. But, he's not thinking about, I just want something a little lower for the house, or a recording situation. Mm-hmm. But that amp, it took me a little while to get used to it, but it really does have a great mid-range. And it's real hard to see the controls because it's against that chrome background, but with the push-pull thing.
Yeah, I have the same one, and it's
all right. So,
it's weird. I keep thinking that I want to put gold on it, swap them out so I can see them.
Right.
I'm looking at it right now, and I'm like,
no, you got to use a flashlight.
Yeah, I don't want to knock them because right
now,
I know they're where they want them.
Yeah. I got to put some tape on the top. And once you get the settings you like, just put tape on the top that shows which way.
Yeah.
So those are the three heads I've been doing all the recording with. Various guitars, of course, but and a couple of different mics. One time I tried to get a little ambitious using two mics, which my friend Brian told me he was showing me how to do, but it's not that friendly in GarageBand. There is a way to do it, but it started to get, to me, my tone is in my hands anyway. How many damn microphones do you need to hear it from?
Right. Yes, absolutely.
And I can't let the engineering get in my way. This recent session I just did for the video that I'm going to film tonight, which everybody will hear about in another week. I engineer kamikaze because I'm not that good with it. I am good with getting the sounds, but I want to keep moving, and I can't say, take me in there. You know what I mean? And the punching in, and then so I just go to a different track, and I make sure that they will all line up. You put it together for me. Yeah. I'm not saying I won't learn that. And actually, Paulie Z, who's the guy who I did the session for, from ZO2, very talented guy who lost his brother David Z, and we're all about to share something related to all our losses, including this guy Gabriel Connor, who lost his dad with COVID. So that's what this video is about, and the song's going to be about. But I told him, I said, I just wanted to move forward. You fix it. And then he said, you need Logic, which is the step up on those programs. He said, you'll see that the punching in and the connecting of the tracks become much easier for you, because he knew what I was struggling with. And I can't let the engineering part affect my creativity and keeping the flow going, and that's the only thing that I'm always amazed at guys that can do it all, but then again, I love the new Paul McCartney record, and he probably recorded everything himself too. I think it was a COVID record.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He I don't know where he came from, but he's really good.
Yeah, it's another planet when you hit genius musical.
It's another planet.
Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely.
So the guitars, then I could go all the way into one of my great, Les Pauls, or one of my vintage Kiss, like the banana guitar, the one with the little Chiquita sticker on it. I'm planning on using that for a session that's going to happen either later or tomorrow. So, and then I have, some semi-acoustic ones. Somebody wanted a more Beatle-y kind of thing, a Telly or Strat. It's really great to have the instruments that I need, different tools for all the different tones that I'm trying to accomplish. I see, especially you, Joey, you got a lot of gear sitting around there.
Yeah.
It's fun.
I like to dabble.
It's all fake.
Oh, yeah.
It's all fronts.
It's the rabbit hole. You go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
My
God.
I mean,
and then you get that Les Paul, but then there's so many beautiful different colors, and there's so many different neck shapes and everything else, you just can't get one anyway.
Yeah, but one tip with that is always, well, there's going to be different feels of the guitars, but once you get like that telly that is to you the ultimate telly tone, then that one becomes your comparison one. You know what I mean?
Right.
And the same thing with a Strat, Les Paul. And I've been measuring all of the guitars now, my favorite guitars, because I always was wondering why. Well, this one's so much more comfortable. Where's my favorite one? And even the one that's really got a big neck, a 57 reissue, even though it looked like it starts off the biggest, but it's not that different once you get up to the 12th fret. It's similar to a few of the other ones that have a big neck, but it's all different for everybody,
Wow.
Bruce, I wanted to ask you, I know you have like an incredible guitar collection, but I want to know is what attracted you to the ESP guitars when at the time you could have went with anybody? What was the attraction of the ESP, which is an amazing guitar?
Yeah.
And how did you wind up? And how did you wind up with your signature model? I know you went through a couple of phases, but
yeah. Well, if you're talking about the black SG-ish looking signature model, that was very short-lived, okay, for a few reasons. But I'll give you a quick overview of ESP. Okay. First of all, when I joined KISS in '84, you had to have a Floyd Rose, okay, on a guitar. Yeah. And I actually owned like a Parts Kubicki neck something body with a Floyd Rose for the session I did for Paul on Animalize. And then when he said, "Don't cut your hair," I didn't know why. And then all of a sudden, there I am getting ready to go to Europe with them. I realized I needed some guitars. By then, I already found a blue Charvel. It was the angle headstock, again, American-made one, electric blue kind of color. And then they kindly bought me a gold 3-pickup one from Sam Ash. And then I had a black BC Rich Eagle, which was very much something I was familiar with, okay? Yeah. So those 3 guitars I was covered with. And then by the end of that tour, I started, some friends of mine in New York were introduced to ESP, and they started to make a presence, like have a distribution in New York for America. Yeah. And they told me, come check these out. And right away, my one complaint with the Charvels, which were amazing guitars and very popular still. In fact, their prices the early ones keep going up and up. And then a Jackson I got into, of course, but that the necks were too thin. Something about Charvel Jackson was a thin, wider profile, which is not like vintage guitars, okay? And you probably, and Len, you're probably not aware that actually ESP started off as kind of a very, very well-respected Fender copy, okay, in Japan and everything. So they were shaping their necks much more like my 63 Strat that I had from years prior that I performed with Meatloaf. And so right away I was, now there was no Floyd Rose on a 63 Strat, but right away I was more comfortable. As soon as they had me check out what they called an M1, I was like, oh, wow, this feels great. And that was that flip-flop blue one. And I'm looking at that finish, and we're getting ready to go on tour for Asylum, which was very colorful. And now I told Paul about ESP, and he said, I have an idea for a guitar. Maybe they could do this for you. And he helped come up with that multi-swirl design.
The swirl guitar.
Right. Yeah. Which I've now offered through their LTD, which is the Korean thing. In a way, it's a signature model, but they don't offer it. They weren't interested in me having another signature model or anything current, but they're happy to make me guitars that I could offer to my fans, and I've done 2 runs of those. I did one run with the banana guitar too that they made really well. So, but getting back to ESP, so from the M1s, the bolt-on Super Strats, as I like to call them, which I was much more comfortable on, I played various ones of those. Then I got into the Horizon. And then, and a lot of those models, which are terrific guitars. And then I challenged them. The guitar that you just saw me share on the Guitar of the Month was an Explorer from '92, and they made me a couple Explorer copies. I'm still real close with the company. I'm so happy in the last year they started offering things like the 1987, which is an M1, closer to a soloist, like a Jackson soloist,
Yeah.
and very similar to a Horizon, but not the arch top. And those guitars are doing great for them. Simple, basic, one pickup, Floyd Rose, fast neck, speedy, powerful guitars. They're terrific, and they're LTDs, so they're not going to cost you $3,000-$4,000.
Awesome.
Right.
They're closer to $1,000. So I'm very close with the company. I always supported them. When we did that signature model you mentioned, it couldn't be continued because Gibson was getting very upset about double cutaway things, and we had to stop. And that was kind of weird timing because that's exactly when Kiss was going to go into makeup, which meant the end of my era. You see what I mean?
Right.
So there were about 100 of those made, and about 63 or 5 of them were bolt-on. The other 35 or so were neck-through, which is a little rarer. And I was real proud of the model. It wasn't perfect. It's a little neck-heavy, but they were really well made. And those were all done by the custom shop in Japan. Those are hard to find. I see occasionally people offer them, but I was happy to be involved with that. But I find now doing kind of like throwback guitars to those M1 ones will be my focus with ESP moving forward.
Wow.
Wow.
Very cool story.
Yeah.
I got to ask you, of course I have a couple of Kiss questions. Is what's the story behind you getting that gig? I mean, there's a story with you and Mark St. John, and you were doing a European tour. Like, can you share a little bit about that?
It comes out of that session that I mentioned that I brought the Floyd Rose guitar to.
Mm-hmm.
I did go to guitar work for Kiss, even though I knew them, and of course my brother used to. But a lot of people told Paul that I was talented. Paul was producing Animalize. They already got their new hotshot guitar player, Mark St. John, who weirdly got ill with an arthritic condition that's somewhat rare, where his hands, got swollen, and they weren't going to cancel their tour that they planned. So that's how I got the call to go to Europe. After 6 weeks on the road with them there, which went very well, I certainly got the trial by fire, as I like to say, and I got used to working with them, and it was quite exciting. Now American tour is going to start, and at the end of 84, and Mark was better, thankfully for him. His hand, the condition calmed down, and they contractually or for whatever reason, they felt like, well, we got to give Mark a shot. He's on the record. He's on our publicity. He's got a contract. And they took him out on the road, and they tested him out like a half a show, then the other half of the show, and then a whole show. And then it ended. They realized that they had the guy with me. They sent him home. So suddenly I was supposed to be a fill-in, a temporary guy, and it turned into 12 years. What could I say? It was very interesting.
Yeah, pretty long temp job you got there.
Yeah,
it was.
Yeah, I got
we have a couple come back tomorrow.
Yeah, we have a couple of questions from some of the fans that are watching.
Sure.
One is Jesse. I know he's a drummer, and he's asking, who's the drummer that you thought was the most diverse, and which is the drummer that hit the hardest that you remember?
Hit the hardest. Wow. For me, probably Eric Singer hits the hardest. Maybe not as much in the last year, but I haven't played with him in the last year. And hardest doesn't mean, better, as you can imagine.
Right. Yeah.
But I will admit that, look, Eric Carr was amazing as a drummer, and he was so creative and so important with the band and so musical. And then Eric Singer comes along because sadly we lost Eric Carr. Yeah. And Eric comes from a very musical family. His dad was a big band guy. Really great drum. I've been blessed with terrific drummers around me. Don Brewer from Grand Funk, 20 years playing with him. I could count maybe 2 or 3 times, and I'm like, what happened to Don? And, of course, it was the stick that got away, you know what I mean? Or something breaks, because he's a groove meister, you know what I mean? He's never off at all. But I've just been really blessed. Brent Fitz is incredibly musical too. He's been a real blessing to play with. and he was in union with me, and he did those cruise gigs with me. So I've been real fortunate. It used to drive me crazy at the fantasy camp if I didn't have a drummer that could kind of keep a beat, you know what I mean? Because it really is the heartbeat of a band. Okay.
Absolutely.
But I've just played with a lot of great drummers. I'm very, very, very blessed. I was really, really excited. And those couple of times I got to jam with people like Alan White, you know, that's amazing. You know, it just really, the groove of a drummer, Simon Kirk, I got to jam with Jack Bruce. That was amazing.
Wow.
That's a moment, right?
Yeah.
Bruce too, something like that, where you
sure.
You know, and again, you know, Simon Kirk being just a rock solid groove drummer too.
Yes, he always loved me playing All Right Now for the campus, because I used to kind of be able to interpret the, you know, Paul Kossoff guitar parts, you know, so it's fun.
Yeah, awesome.
So you're involved with the Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp?
Yeah, you know, there's a new movie out that came out. I'm only shown and mentioned very briefly in it, but that movie's got a lot of great info, and it shows a lot of Slash and Paul Stanley and Gene, Roger Daltrey, a lot of the people that I worked with through those years. So check that out. Yeah, Rock Camp the movie, I think it's called. Very cool. I haven't been able to do a lot of them because of my schedule with Grand Funk, to be honest, in these last years. But David Fishoff is it's a great concept, and the people, I've met some wonderful people from it, and I got to jam with some of my heroes, from Roger Daltrey to Jack Bruce to, you know, Dickie Betts, and you know, just incredible times I've had.
Wow, that's awesome. Cool. That's a great thing. I have a friend, you may know him, Kevin Dugan, who's the bass tech for Michael Anthony.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
He does it every year, and actually I was just on the phone with him last night. He wants to come on the show. So
yeah, you should have him. He's great, and he's in the movie. Doogie's in the movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we gotta remember, we gotta book him.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
Betty from Facebook Live is asking, who was the first band you saw in concert, and what was your first record?
Okay, that's a great question, and you're going to be blown away by my first concert. Okay, you ready for this?
Yeah.
This is life-changing. So, you know, everyone probably knows that song, you know, Good Lovin', da-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun.
Yeah.
And the Rascals were very popular.
Like you're a
you know,
New York guy, so
the Young Rascals, right? They were so popular, and they were going to headline a show from Murray Decay. Now Murray Decay was a New York guy who used to have his shows in Brooklyn, but then he moved one to. Finally, he was going to have a matinee show at a theater in Manhattan, okay, on Carnegie Street area, or 57th Street, near there. So I'm old enough. It's 1966. I'm 13. I can take the train and go to Manhattan and go see the concert. But the opening act is the story, okay? So you remember he always did reviews, kind of.
Yeah,
you know?
right. Yeah.
So I think the first band was Cream, okay, and the second band was The Who, okay.
Oh.
So it was 1966, and I'm like, I was like this. What was that? It was amazing. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, and then who would know? And then when I got to meet Jack Bruce at the London camp and got to play with him, which was surreal, of course, there was a fan there when I did a Q&A and chatted a little bit about what Cream meant to me. And I mentioned the show. There was a guy who showed a picture of Jack Bruce. His hair was really short. He was just growing it out. It was only like a little bangs kind of thing, because that was really early Cream, probably their first time in America, I'm sure. And he had a picture of Jack coming out from the backstage, you know, from the venue, you know. Oh, so what an incredible gig to be at, you know. And the first album I bought, well, you know, it would have been, I mean, there were two that I really remember early on. There was a store called, oh God, now I'm going to forget the name of the store, but it was in Queens where I could take the bus and go shopping. My wife probably remember I don't even know if they're around anymore, but they had a record, section. And I bought the first Black Sabbath record. That was very exciting, because when I heard it and I heard the beginning of that album, I was like, what is that? That's like heavy Cream. You know what I mean? Like Evil Cream, I thought.
Cream.
But I remember buying, I remember buying Bridge Over Troubled Waters because I really loved Simon and Garfunkel.
Not Evil Cream.
Yeah.
No, not Evil Cream. No.
Yeah. Great album, though. Great album.
Great
Yep.
album.
Yeah.
Oh God, now I'm going crazy thinking of what's the name of that store I went to. I doubt if they exist anymore. Department stores come and go. But it was interesting. And you got to remember, with my brother being about almost 4 years older than me, obviously I got to hear things that I probably shouldn't have heard. You know what I mean? They're like, here's the first Hendrix record. I'm like, oh my God, what is that? You know what I mean? So, but I didn't go out and buy it. He would have brought it home, and then we listened to it. So, but I do remember like actually going to the record shop and buying, let's say, Abbey Road, coming home, putting on my headphones, lying down and listening to it, and realizing I heard a masterpiece once again, because that was another group that just really changed my life. That was the first group to change my life, of course.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that album can blow anybody away. It's just incredible. Incredible.
Nothing we heard before. Yeah, but it must be great. I mean, Bob, just an amazing player, amazing musician. To have, first off, for the rest of us to know that, but for him to bring home records that you got to hear and just watch his career too was probably an amazing way to grow up.
Yeah, I was very proud of him because we both knew we had a gift for guitar at a younger age, but with him being older, he was able to. And I'm going to, in time, share all this. There was so much that he could have shared with the fans that I'm going to do it justice for sure, because I was always so proud of him. And he literally got on a plane to England and said, I'm going to find a band to play with there after, starting some groups in America that didn't go anywhere, even though a few of them got to record, did professional photo shoots, but didn't take off. I mean, my brother met Jimi Hendrix at the Cafe Wha in the Village because that's where he was playing with a band. He gave Hendrix a string when he broke a string, so he was there. Jimmy wasn't famous yet. It was Jimmy James and the whatever, But the point is, he went to England to get a gig and then winds up being like an extra guitar player in the band called Hookfoot. Okay, now Hookfoot was the backing group for Elton John. Elton John's first record had some of those guys, Caleb Quay and a couple other guys. I forget the name of the drummer, but they played on that very first Elton John record and did a little more. And Hookfoot's a great group. And I was so proud of my brother. And then it didn't happen. He was literally on salary with the guy who owned the Beatles publishing, Dick James Music at the time. Okay. A lot of that changed through the years of the Beatles' career. But, and then he was like on a salary of like, I don't know, 20 pounds a week or something. And he was like, I need more money. I can't survive, and they were like, sorry, we don't have any more money. And he came home and I remember so clearly, he was exhausted. He felt defeated, and I remember looking at him and just saying, Bob, what you did was incredible. I'm so proud of you. Who just gets on a plane and goes somewhere, winds up actually working with some guys. They weren't famous, but they were playing real venues in England, big theaters, and they had a name and a record deal. And he was the extra guy that they respected and added to the group. And to me, it was like he was, a win. What he did was heroic and amazing. Now, I understand his disappointment that he didn't make it, but I think that everything that he, picked up being there and doing that then led him into the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And everybody knows, if you look at his accomplishments, all the different artists that he played with through the years. And probably a few that a lot of people don't know is like Hookfoot and John Cale and Tim Curry and all of that. They might only know, he played Ghost Guitar for Kiss and he played on Paul Stanley's solo record. Oh yeah, he did something with Meatloaf, but there's so much more. And it was all, all those gigs in the beginning, just like I toured with George McRae, the guy who had a hit,
Rock Your Baby. That was like your first touring thing.
Yeah.
Approach the road.
Right. So all those things really, everything that you learn from those things then bring you to the next thing in the best way that If I didn't tour with Meatloaf, which wasn't easy, maybe it would have been even harder for me to tour with Kiss by the time I got the call for that, you know?
Right.
So but there was that, Bob could share with me, I could absorb it. At times I really, wanted to get into some bands that he didn't care about as well. I liked the progressive stuff better than he did, like King Crimson and Yes and things like that. And he was more Stones, and I was heading more towards, you know, some of that stuff. Emerson, Lake and Palmer, which Paul Stanley used to make fun of me about, you know. But I like that stuff, and I like jazz more than my brother too. But we shared a lot of course, the same passion and all those, like, oh my God, listen to Eric Clapton here songs and things that they did and that they were known for meant a lot. I have some really rare recordings of Bob and I jamming into a tape recorder, you know, where I'm playing bass and he's playing guitar, and real interesting stuff. So I'm actually really, really fortunate that I've archived it, and apparently once I was able to get all his things under control, meaning all of his paperwork and all his media, I was very impressed with what he collected through the years. I had no idea that he had all that. In fact, he had photos of me that I didn't know I had. You know what I mean? From early things of mine. So it's exciting to know that it exists, and it's not just a memory. I mean, I wish some of my, you know, deceased relatives that they're, you know, like my uncle and my parents and my grandparents, that I could have had even more archived from their lives, you know. But what I have of my brothers is very, very important to me, and I'm going to be sure that it's shared in a wonderful way for everyone that's interested.
That's awesome.
That's
really
great. I mean, to have that bit of legacy too, that includes you. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You know, we were connected, and there was a parallel things, and at times, as you know, and I hope everyone can understand the greater narrative of it. You know, having brothers, sometimes, you know, it's even more difficult to sometimes see the same things. And we had various times during our lives where we weren't close, but we still always loved each other, but we weren't close. And it's always ironic when I look at some other groups with brothers and I see what goes on. You know, I don't know why it's like that, but most important is the fact that we both always, you know, really did admire and you know, respected each other's talent and what we were blessed with, which was this ability to play guitar and create music. That group balance, by the way, that Bob had, he's still very close with Pepe Castro and the keyboard player. He was tight with them even before he passed. And Pepe and I have been friends for a while. And they reached out to me about a song that Bob never got a chance to actually play on it, but something that they were going to work on. So I'll be playing guitar on it. I can't wait. I'm just waiting for the files to come. Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff like that. Potentially another Christmas record he was working on, and maybe I can, you know, I gotta figure out all the legalities of it and everything before I could do something with it. But if there was something there to share, I'd like to do something like that as well.
Right.
Wow.
That is awesome.
So another thing that people may not know was that you played on the Tale of the Tape Billy Squier record.
Yes.
And, you know, I just recently found that out. And one thing about Billy Squier, his records, he always had great guitar tones.
Great guitar.
And I'm just floored to find out that you were pretty much all the guitars, but...
Well, I'll set the record straight about Tale of the Tape. And it's kind of funny you brought it up, Len, because I realized that my wife told me, I realized I don't own the LP. You know what I mean? I have the CD in a couple of forms. And Eddie Trunk would always talk about it being one of his Desert Island CDs, Tale of the Tape. Now, Billy wasn't real famous with that one. That was his first solo record. And we did it with Eddie Alford, the guy who engineered and produced with Yes, okay, at his studio up in Woodstock, where I also recorded with Michael Bolton and a few other artists. And Billy was meticulous with everything. we rehearsed. Originally, my brother was going to play guitar, and then Bob had a conflict that he couldn't get out of, and Billy wasn't going to move anything. And next thing I know, he contacts me. That was one of the disagreements with my brother when I did the work, and you know what I mean. And Billy hired me, and he was upset about that. Anyway, well, if it's going to go to another guy, better someone in the family than a stranger.
Yeah,
right,
you know,
exactly.
other guy.
Exactly.
Because Billy was going to still record that record without him, even though he wasn't available. But I learned a lot from working with Billy. He was meticulous with notes and everything about the sounds and everything. Unfortunately, and what's really interesting was there's a few solos of mine. I always played rhythm on every song with Billy, usually like left and right. I had my BC Rich Eagle Supreme, which is a great guitar. It also had a boost. So there were times during the basic tracks that I actually went for it and played the solo, you know, and we were able to maybe touch up a part of it, but the solo was mine, like on Rich Kid, okay? But then I had to go back to New York, city, because Woodstock's in New York State, and then Billy wanted me back there, and I couldn't go back because Blackjack, we were rehearsing for something as the band with Michael Bolton that was supposed to happen, and I couldn't get back up there. So some of the solos that I did that I didn't really play perfectly during the, basic tracks and trying and going for it with some overdubs, Billy actually took note for note, fixed the little blips, and he played my riffs. You know what I mean? And I have to admit, in one way I felt like, what? And in another way I said like, wow. You know what I mean? He must have really liked what I played. And back then it wasn't that easy to, it wasn't Pro Tools. We're like, we'll just take that riff and move it over here. No. So he actually copied. So some of those leads you're hearing, especially when it sounds more like a telly, that is Billy, but he's playing my riffs, that I came up with.
Wow.
That's very
I think it's a terrific record. I blasted it out when I got the vinyl a week ago. The guy who sold it to me didn't know who I was. It didn't matter. Sometimes I buy something and they go like, am I selling this to Bruce Kulick? The Bruce Kulick? Yes, you are. Thank you. Why not? I have to buy it, But it's a great record. I did learn a lot, and a lot of fans aren't aware of the fact that I did some work with Billy Squier. But check this out real quick. Billy asked me to go on tour. And I couldn't do that either because Blackjack was supposed to go on tour. So I go like, I can't do the tour. It turned out that Blackjack didn't go on tour. And then he goes on tour with a different guy. Now he's like really pissed at me. Okay. And then then I sit home while he's out touring. He's not a star yet, but then he goes in and records the big album. Okay. The first big one. I forget which one that was called though. Was it whatever, but it had the big hit on it. Yeah. And then, but then I got the call to be in Kiss. If I was with him, I never would have
got the Kiss call.
Right. You'd be opening for Kiss with Billy.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow.
So,
isn't that funny how that shit works, right?
Or laughing at that video he did, which wasn't a good idea. But
that's what killed him.
No, that killed him.
I know. But I really, Billy.
It's a shame because he's.
Yeah. You had Bobby Chenard playing on the drums, and you just had a really cool live guitar sound.
Yes.
It wasn't metal, but it was just rock, and it was just like,
great.
Yeah. And then the video came out, and it kind of
things changed. I know.
Oh,
well, Billy really knew how to channel Led Zeppelin with a pop sensibility.
Yeah.
He had that high voice. He wrote catchy tunes.
It was almost perfect.
If any of you guys know how I could reach him, I'd love to have another chat with him after all these years.
I can take care of that.
Relay a message to him, please. I'd love to.
Relay a message for you.
There's so much to go down the memory lane with him. It's kind of funny. I'm in touch with Michael Bolton on and off, through the years, which has been great. There's so many places that I play with Graham Funk, and he was there like the month earlier. I'll send him the picture of the poster, and we have a laugh. Or we'll have a chat about a few things, but. And Michael's doing great still. He's still out there with a TV show and other things.
That's the other thing that a lot of people may not be aware of. He's like Michael Bolton kind of started out as a rock singer.
He was a rocker.
Went very AOR mainstream stuff.
Yep.
And he was in a band with you, Blackjack.
Yes.
And it was like, he has a great voice where he can pull off that almost Paul Stanley type of vocal.
He's got, look, he did better when he was singing more, for a different crowd. He perfected himself for that.
Absolutely.
But he was always a rocker at heart. And I learned a lot from the bands, from Blackjack, from the project I had with him. I got the Grand Funk gig also through something with Michael, by the fact that he went off and that's when he changed his name to Bolton. So now I'm touring with him as Bolton, but he gets the Bob Seger tour to open up with the new record deal and the new video on MTV. Now we're talking 1983. And then Bob Seger's drummer is Don Brewer. Okay, because many times Brewer would play with Bob.
So that's
Seger.
the connection.
Yeah.
And then I, get to meet Don. Don remembers me. Short list when Mark Fauner is going to go solo. So yeah, the rest is 20 years of Grand Funk.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Can't believe it's 20 years. That's amazing.
I know.
Wow.
And you're still active with them whenever you can do shows.
We keep in touch. Every week we get nothing's changed, but we're looking at maybe we could, what are you going to do? Yeah, I miss those guys very much. They're terrific guys. All my Kiss diehard fans that have come to see me are always very impressed because it's not about the production. It's about 5 guys on stage playing
Cranking it
really
out.
great music,
Great.
Yeah.
And so they enjoy it. I get to play a lot, and there's nobody gets hurt. Everyone has a good time with some great music. So we'll see. I can't say when I'll be back out on the road. I don't think anyone can make a prediction on the last day of February, but we know that the pandemic isn't going to be forever and things will start to open up in time. And I look forward to performing with them because I miss the guys. They're really terrific group.
Right. Wow,
Wow, that's fantastic.
So tell me, we have some of our typical questions that we like to bring up. And you've performed a lot. I mean, a lot more than most people. So I would bet you have more than one or two. Do you have one of those Spinal Tap moments that you can share with us where something went really awry that is so funny you can share with us?
Yeah, my favorite one is when, the lights go off for dramatic effects. You're on the big stage, but the lights are going to go off. And I definitely got confused. Usually you're told before, or you hopefully remember which side of the stage you're supposed to exit, because every arena will be different. Every stage sets up, it's a little different. And I absolutely went the wrong way in the dark and right into Gene. Okay, not good. Okay, not good. Because he was always built like a football player, even though his weight goes up and down like various people. But no, not good. So that was Spinal Tap to me for sure.
Wow. Very cool.
Well, since we're along those lines, I had a question about this because it really, the Kiss thing with the makeup and there had been, everybody had some. I think even Mark St. John had his makeup, even though I don't think it was ever used. Was there?
No. Well, I don't know if they ever made any makeup for Mark. But go ahead.
Did they ever set up anything for you?
No, it just never came up because I was part of a different era that they realized once they took the makeup off that it would be silly to try to revisit that. I mean, the reunion tour obviously put them back in the iconic makeup. And I always find the interesting question would have been more like, well, if Eric Carr was still alive for the reunion tour, what would they have done for him? Do you see what I mean? Like, let's say Peter Criss comes in as the Cat, and then they realize, no, Peter's not going to be with us anymore. What do? Put the Fox in? I always wondered what that would be, but I'm sure everybody out there has an opinion. But it's a make-believe story anyway. Sure. But no, they never. There was no need to think about a makeup person for me. There wasn't.
But if you were going to, what character would you?
During COVID, there was a guy over in Europe who was very, very talented. This guy, Maury, who was doing these brush challenges. Okay. And people that understood how to use TikTok or one of those things, you take the brush, and when you tap the thing and your hand goes there, and then all of a sudden you got the Kiss makeup on. Okay.
We can do that next time.
And they go from regular guy or girl to, and sometimes it's variations of it. Anyway, and they'll do sometimes, Eric Carr's Fox or maybe the Ankh for Vinny. So he approached my wife. Some people, I don't mind when they approach my wife. She's a little kinder. Sometimes I get a little crusty with all the requests. But anyway, it was real simple. He was real kind. And he asked her, would Bruce do what do you think about him doing something like this? And then we talked about it. And then it was her idea to tell them well, why don't we ask them to just come up with a design for Bruce? You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and that's what they did. And it was quite creative. And then I had to go on video choosing a winner. Okay. And there was this one guy, there was a couple of really good ones, one was this arrow thing from a girl that I really liked. But there was this one guy who had something called the Mage, which is like represents magician, actually, the Mage, M-A-G. And it was just kind of an interesting makeup character that I thought like, well, that's not bad, because it is really hard, if you think about it.
Sure.
Eric Carr went through a lot of hassle finally becoming the Fox. He was almost, I think, the Hawk or something weird. I don't know. But anyway, that went over really well, and it was kind of funny to see that. But, and I always would joke and just say, like, well, there was a cat in the band, I'd be the dog. And then, of course, people draw me as a dog, it's endless,
That's what we wanted to get to. We just really wanted to get the gist of it, where your direction probably would be the dog.
Yeah, I probably would have gone towards the dog. But actually, this Mage was pretty good. But it ain't going to happen, anybody. It's not going to happen. I'll let everybody know. There's no need for me.
All the fans are losing it now. They're going,
yeah. I think my 12 years in the band with this face and the nose is good enough, All right, guys. I got another thing to do soon.
You got it.
Okay.
You got it. Well, we're gonna.
I know you'd let me talk for hours because it's a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
It's
really been great. Do you have time for one more?
Sure.
Okay. So
because that's called the wrap-up question, and then I
yes,
can thank everyone, and then we expound upon another thing.
I know.
This is the one we asked everybody. We usually ask some more gear questions, but we got a lot of gear from you in the beginning, which was great. So that one person, that one musician that you look at and just almost frustrates you because they are so good. We typically refer to it as that one person you'd like to give a fuck you to or a thank you. So who do you got? Who just blew you away so much you could almost not believe they were human?
Well, look, I've backed up and jammed along with a lot of really amazing players. Certainly the time I got to jam with Joe Satriani was amazing, and he's a monster player.
Yeah.
And I know there's a few others that I'm just. There's always some of those more fusion players like Alan Holdsworth that I saw at Bottom Line in New York that I was just like, what is he doing?
Yeah.
But one guy, and I think some people may be a little surprised by it, but I really, I played only bass. I backed them up on bass with him. But Steve Vai came to one of the camps, okay? And, I mean, I used to see him. I knew what he did with David Lee Roth, and I've always really respectful of his ability to make the guitar do so many different things. Now, I never jammed or actually in person watched Eddie Van Halen right in front of me. Yeah, I saw him in concert, and I'm not going to deny and tell you that guy was a genius on the guitar. What Eddie did was incredible. But working at the camp with Vai and then backing him up and hearing all the sounds and everything he did with his gem guitar, I was just like, he's an alien, you know what I mean? He's my FU.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
and I just and then it's kind of funny because he's from Long Island.
Yep.
He's got a real, like, I know his vibe. I grew up around that. Sometimes I hear him talk and we almost could sound the same from that, New York thing. And I love he was so sweet to me too. I know there were times when we reached out to me about my brother that we had some conversations. He's the genuine, human being and very, very deep person, and so talented on the guitar. He's someone I refer to as an alien. That's all. Even though I think it's Joe Satriani that, did the whole alien thing, but he was it was great working with him. And what can I say? I have a lot of respect for that. Would he be the right guitarist for Kiss? No.
No, definitely not.
You were.
Right.
You were absolutely. Those records you did with them were stellar and really iconic. And
thank you.
Them. So, and we just to wrap. I mean, just thank you so much. We love the fact
you coming on.
Steve Vai is a million.
Do you promote some of your social platforms? People
Yeah,
want to
yeah, sure.
get in the know
Well,
what's going on with you.
First of all, thanks with you guys. I know we didn't go too deep into gear, but we did talk about some gear because that was one of the reasons why I wanted to do your interview. A lot of people don't talk about equipment and everything, but in wrapping it up, there's always, first of all, my YouTube channel has all those guitar of the months, and it's not hard to find. You put in YouTube my name and my channel's there, and they should subscribe because that's the way to really be sure you don't miss anything.
Yep.
And there's a lot of great content. There's other concerts and performances I've done with my wife, Lisa, and there's a lot of videos I also do celebrating these milestones in history, which I'm very, very excited to do. It's kind of funny. All those things I'm very proud of, but the amount of time I have to put in them is tremendous, but it does make me really, really feel very connected to the fans, more understanding of my history, so this is, it's a two-way street with that, right? The website's brucekulick.com, and all the social media could be linked there. My old website was .net, kulick.net, but that would take you to brucekulick.com. But Facebook, I had the official page and the personal page. It doesn't matter which one. I can't fit everybody on the personal page, but the official page, I usually post the same stuff. Twitter is easy to find. It's Bruce Kulick, I think the Instagram is actually bruce.kulick for whatever reason. Maybe somehow I couldn't get the other one. But I'm pretty active on all of them every week, and I do. There are ways. I know a lot of people, how can I reach you? There's a contact thing on the website, and there's a lot of information there. I because of COVID, probably learned how to micromanage everything now, where before it was too much with the traveling and everything, necessarily keep an eye on everything. But I'm really at a level now where I'm covering all the bases, and it takes me a while to commit to your interview, for example, when you request, until I really get
almost
the
like
info.
a year ago.
I know.
It was good.
That
It was
long.
great.
All right, sorry.
And then I was like, holy shit, he replied.
Yeah. Jolene's the gatekeeper, and she knows when I get really busy, so she keeps it kind of like, she only feeds me the stuff when she knows that maybe I could fit something in. So here we are. But
yeah,
I gotta say that
thank you
to
Jolene for making this happen, for doing this.
No problem. Thank you so much for your professionalism and the information and everything. And no noodling allowed during interviews there.
We can't get him to stop. He's just always that way.
I'll leave you with this one. Hang on.
Yeah.
Todd Kearns is a dear friend of mine. We'll chat. I go like, let's FaceTime. You know what I mean? Okay. So like maybe the first 2 minutes, we're talking, and then all of a sudden he's got to play. And I don't know if like, especially on a device like that, it's going to go right to the guitar, where I can't even, I don't even know how he, and he's just riffing away. And I'm like, Todd, put it down, but I can't tell him. I don't want to tell him because I realize it's fun for him, whatever. So it's my no noodling rule. There you go. Tommy, you broke the noodling rule.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. You stopped. You only started to fiddle. But that's the way guitar players are. We're obsessed with the instrument. We have to have one in our hand.
Yeah. That's why I sit
up
here.
Guys.
I make sure I can't touch. All right.
No, I
Thank
like
you
that
so much. Thank you so much for coming on. We'll say goodbye to Facebook.
Thank you, Bruce.
Like, subscribe, and get Bruce's too, okay? All right.
Yeah, and get me in touch with Billy Squire. And
I
wishing everyone out there at Facebook land the best. You know how to reach me, and MRG, as you guys are called.
Yeah. If you can hang out 1 second with us, we'll sign off. Great.
Okay. All right.
Good.
Take care.
Bye,
Thanks again.
Good night, everybody.
Great. Okay, so we are off.
Wow.